Well, a lot of people would love to know about Winter Promise. How does Winter Promise integrate learning for multiple learning styles? Um, when we think about that, most people want to start with, well, what are the different learning styles? Back in 1983, Howard Gardner outlined different types of learning intelligences that he set that were the types of ways that people learn, and they're all different. Most of us don't have just one learning style. We have a few, but we have a few that are dominant strengths. Usually two or three are the way we take in information best. And he did this so that we could kind of conceptualize measuring intelligence a little differently and understand that just because you don't have one type of intelligence doesn't mean that you don't have a lot of other types of intelligence. And traditional IQ tests and that sort of thing only measure one or maybe two types of intelligence and not the other kinds, the gamut of intelligences. So it's really important for us as parent educators to understand how our kids best take in information and how they learn best. Most of us as families have several different types of learners in our family, so understanding that each child may very well have a different learning style that's their real strength is a help to us knowing how to address that student and how to get them most involved with their studies. Now, Winter Promise uses this in a very Charlotte Mason way. Charlotte Mason advocated utilizing these kinds of different learning styles just by fact that she didn't have Howard Gardner to tell her that, but she knew that children did absorb information in different ways, and so her methodology is perfect for integrating these different learning styles. So let's start with trying to work through, well, what are these different learning styles? You may immediately recognize some of your children as having strengths or secondary strengths in some of these areas as we talk through them, but we're going to go through those intelligences one by one. And as we talk through each intelligence, I'm also going to kind of tell you, well, how does Winter Promise reach out to that type of intelligence with the kind of activities that we provide, so that you can actually key in and focus in on the ones that are going to most reach out to the children you have in your home. So let's start with one of the most common intelligences, the visual spatial intelligence. This area deals with the ability to visualize with the mind's eye, so to speak, and spatial judgment. If you have a student that's really excels in the creative arts, this is typically a visual and spatial intelligence. So the careers that a student might go into as they move on with their life who has this intelligence would be somebody who demonstrates an interest in drawing buildings. They might create fashion or home design. They might become an illustrator or even do other artistic pursuits. And that's the visual spatial intelligence. Now with Winter Promise, the way we include things that challenge these types of learners is that we include drawing, notebooking, creative activities that are more artistic, looking at timelines, actually studying art, and then enjoying highly illustrated books. These are all going to appeal to the visual spatial learner. The next learning avenue would be verbal linguistic. Now, this area has to do with words, whether spoken or written. Students with high verbal linguistic intelligence display a facility with words and languages. They're typically good at reading, writing, telling stories, and memorizing words along with dates. They tend to learn best by reading, taking notes, listening to lectures and discussion, debate, and therefore are typically the ones we label as a good student. They naturally gravitate toward the type of things we do within a traditional school setting, so they function very well inside of a traditional school classroom and may not be the ones that we immediately say, well, this kid could never sit still. No, they're the kids who usually sit still and listen and read and can do that for a long time. Students with verbal linguistic intelligence do learn foreign languages more easily, as they have a high verbal memory and recall and demonstrate just an ability to manipulate foreign language syntax and structure. So that's something that you might want to know about your verbal linguistic learner. People who learn like this, they can go on to become writers, journalists, philosophers, lawyers, politicians, poets, or even teachers. Here at WP, we reach out to these learners by integrating reading, narration. Our timeline cards in our history-related themes are a fantastic way to reach out to these types of learners because they can memorize those dates and look at them like flashcards. The writing we do in language arts and the notebooking. Notebooking is fantastic with our verbal linguistic learners. The DVDs we look at and even the discussions that we have as families appeal to these types of learners. The next type of learning is logical mathematical. This area has a lot to do with logic, abstractions, reasoning, numbers. It's often assumed that those with this type of intelligence naturally excel at mathematics, chess, computer programming, and logical or numerical activities, and that's true. But a more accurate definition actually places less emphasis on traditional mathematical investigation or ability and more on the reasoning capabilities or abstract pattern recognition, the scientific thinking and investigation, and even the ability to perform complex calculations in your head. So it correlates strongly with traditional concepts of intelligence or IQ. People who have this type of intelligence are going to score well on the IQ tests, so that those pattern questions that they ask you or the mathematical story problems that they introduce in an IQ test, people with this intelligence are going to score well in that. And this is a very traditional way of sometimes measuring intelligence, but it is by no means the only one. So people with this aptitude, they become scientists, mathematicians, obviously, engineers, doctors, or even economists. Here at WP, we include this type of intelligence by doing key fact narration, discussion of important topics, activities that use logic, the discussions that we have as families, if we really key in for these types of learners on perhaps making a good argument in a logical fashion. If you look for the different types of activities that are labeled as geeked up activities, those are going to connect with this kind of learner. And then we do offer chess programs as well, which are typically very popular with this type of learner, but for a number of reasons actually connect with other learners as well. Okay, our next learning avenue would be bodily kinesthetic. This is not an area that has to require too much explanation for our parents who can't have kids who can't sit still in school. They're most likely the ones who have this bodily kinesthetic learning avenue, and they do actually learn better by getting involved physically in the learning opportunities that they're presented with. Imagine that. You knew that already, right, Mom? So by trying things themselves, they excel, and of course they're good at physical activities such as sports or dance because they have a very high aptitude in connecting those major body functions with different types of learning experiences. They may enjoy acting or performing, and in general are pretty good at building or making things. They do something better by interacting physically rather than reading or hearing about it. And they use what might be termed as body memory to actually create pathways in their brain and actually lay down that learning experience. So if you can get them involved with handling, touching, doing, trying, being, and just generally diving in, you're going to have a much better learning experience for this type of learning avenue. Students with this strength go on to become athletes, dancers, musicians, doctors, builders, police officers, soldiers, and these careers, they don't usually learn to do what they're doing through simulation. They do it in real life, and so that's what you're going to want to do with them as they are learning in their education. So here in WP, we offer hands-on activities that they're just absolutely going to love. Experiments, try it yourself types of activities that we provide in which the student reproduces history or culture, and even the games we do. We have timeline card games that when you're interacting and dealing the cards and manipulating them the way that the activities we include in there would do, that's going to appeal to this type of learning style.